Well, good morning. I hope your Sunday is off to a good start. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to explore a couple of concepts that are getting a lot of attention lately, and although it seems like they should be simple enough, they can also mean different things to different people. I'm talking about sustainability and mindfulness, and we'll get one perspective on those ideas starting right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, today we'll be exploring some ideas that are somewhat removed from our usual areas of discussion, but it's always interesting to get a different perspective on things happening in the world around us. Our guest this morning is Angela Johnson. Angela has a master's degree in community agriculture, recreation, and resource studies, as well as a health coaching certificate from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She also has her own business called Green Living Yoga, and she's written a book called Sustainability from the Inside Out. Welcome to the Ryan Report.
Thank you.
And you stumped me with a word already.
Yeah.
You know, in addition to those things, we could probably also add to the list that you're a wife and a mom, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you grew up in East Lansing, if my research is right.
Right.
And you not only went to high school there, but to the Michigan State University.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you a big Spartan fan?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pulling for the Spartans in the March Madness?
Yes, and it looks like my 17-year-old daughter is going to be going to Michigan State too.
Okay.
So.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah.
How did you wind up in Marquette?
Love.
Love, okay.
I was on vacation up here and I camping, and I met my husband.
Okay.
So we were long distance for a while, and when I finished school, love brought me up here.
Okay, I didn't know if you loved the area or loved a guy, but it turned out to be a guy.
Yeah, but I've absolutely fallen in love with the area.
Okay. I have to mention before we get into our subject that this today is my 100th show since I returned and started doing this again. There's no prize, so.
Wow.
You know, but there should be. But
I feel honored.
Actually, I started
Exciting.
doing this for the benefit of our audience in 2003 and did it for about 5 years. And then I went on the Marquette City Commission for 6 years. And then when I finished that, I came back, and so this is show number 100. So
wow.
we'll make it a good one.
That's exciting.
As I said at the top of the show, we're going to explore these ideas. I went to your website, and you said, I practice a holistic approach to health and wellness, which means I look at how all areas of our life are connected, spirit, mind, body, and earth. Is that a statement, a good description of what you're all about?
Absolutely.
Tell us more about it.
Okay. Well, in our society, first of all, start off by saying people are used to looking at things very dualistically. So in modern industrial society, we like to compartmentalize things, subjects in school and what we do here and here. And the reality is, and what science is showing us, is that in fact, everything is interrelated. So there's a connection between mind and body. And medical doctors are finding this as well. There's a lot of research coming out that if you practice, say, meditation or a form of mindfulness in your life, if you're suffering from something like cancer or a disease or an ailment, and you think these positive thoughts and you bring about that peace mentally, it actually has a physical improvement in your body.
Okay.
So that there's a connection between mind, body, spirit, and a lot of times these practices like meditation and mindfulness and loving kindness, attention for yourself is a spiritual practice. And the earth as well.
I'm going to say, and you kind of extend that to the earth then too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's holistic health doctors have been saying mind, body, soul, health. People, you've probably heard that before. But yeah, I think the unique thing that I add that I'm trying to share with people is that it's mind, body, soul, and earth. And again, that's just another extension of realizing that everything is interconnected.
Okay. I want to bring us back to that everything working together, but I also want to explore these two concepts separately so people get to understand them.
Yeah.
Sustainability. Now, here's a case of, I think you and I come at this from kind of different perspectives. You know, I'm a former mining guy, I'm a development person, business background. You're more from the environmental side, I would think. different perspectives. I think it's a good idea for people with different perspectives to talk about these ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in your perspective. How do you view sustainability? How would you define it for people?
Yeah, that's great. You're right, because it does mean a lot of things to different people. And the reason that this term is so popular right now is because people are realizing that, and when I think of the term sustainability, I think of that it can be maintained and sustained generation after generation after generation, sort of indefinitely, right? The Native Americans, cultures, many of them think seven generation thinking. And so when I think of sustainability, I think of it like that. You want to think that what you're doing, how you're operating and running society, and how you're living your lifestyle is something that could be maintained, let's say for 7 generations. So it's sustainable.
I looked at came across one definition. It was from a report in 1992 called the Brundtland Report.
That's probably the most popular way, yes.
And the definition they came up with is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Absolutely. That's probably the most widely quoted definition of sustainability.
The same report also said that sustainability has been hijacked by business and government.
Yeah.
Now, many corporations, they have a sustainability program.
Right.
Most of the largest corporations do.
Right.
Probably not exactly what you're thinking about, huh?
Right. Yeah, you do have to be careful because everybody's jumping on this sustainability bandwagon, and I think everybody wants to pass on, a healthy world, a healthy society to our children and grandchildren. But yeah, sometimes you can have more of a shallow definition of sustainability, and it's still kind of going on with business as usual. But I would argue that we need a little bit more of a radical transformation for sustainability to really take root.
Okay. We'll follow up on that in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Our guest this morning is Angela Johnson. We're talking about sustainability and mindfulness. Let's stay with sustainability for just a few more minutes.
Okay, great.
Some people see it as kind of a battle between nature and industry. The question comes up, a lot of it has to do with consumption, doesn't it? And the fact that we're really supplying people with what they need or maybe what they think they need. How would you react to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that modern and industrial society gets this idea in people's heads that we need more and more and more stuff to be happy. And it's not good for us, and here's how everything's connected. That's not good for us on a healthy sort of individual level to constantly be just seeking out materialistic possessions for health and happiness. And it's certainly not good for the earth. The earth can't take all of our wants. And so, shifting to mindfulness and away from in utilizing the idea of voluntary simplicity. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
No.
But voluntary simplicity means sort of simplifying your life, and just kind of like if you have a room in your house and it gets really cluttered, it's just can be stressful and it's unnecessary and there's no real need for it. Just bearing down to the bare essentials, and a lot of times it makes everything a lot more pleasant and you get everything out of it instead of just a bunch of clutter that's almost too much. Do you really need 12 pairs of shoes?
Well, yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it is interesting, and as someone pointed out, someone who I would say was probably pro-development, also did point out that we tend to look at this as Americans and see our needs here, but if the whole world were to live like we did, the earth definitely could not provide all the resources that would be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. When I teach environmental science, I always have my students do an ecological footprint assessment. So you talk about where your food's coming from and how you're traveling around and what you're purchasing, and the results are, for most people, if the average person in the world lived like an American lives, we would need an additional 4 to 6 planets. So
Yeah.
it's just
pretty staggering.
unsustainable, right, to continue living with so much materialistic.
We always like to place blame. Where do we place the blame here?
Well, I tend to place the blame on some thinkers and philosophers from the 16 and 1700s, most notably Rene Descartes, who taught that there's a separation between man and nature. And this is really what the whole industrial civilization was built on, was this idea that nature is like a machine and that we're somehow separate from that. And this whole worldview has just really seeped into our culture. And I blame that. So I think I blame our thinking, or the mind that's been passed down.
So we've had hundreds of years to get us where we are. It's probably going to take hundreds of years to change those trends.
Yeah,
if in fact
it's
they do.
okay. It's patient. But that's why the name of my book is Sustainability from the Inside Out.
Okay.
Because I believe it is a transformation in our mindsets, a shift in mindset.
Certainly. Let's talk about this word mindfulness. And actually, you know, I picked up Time magazine a couple of months ago, and it just so happened that, well, I lost the spot now, but, oh, here it is. Simple moves can lead to a less stressed out you. It says there's fresh evidence that simple mindfulness practices can solve your problems. Define mindfulness for us.
Okay. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, he's probably the most famous spokesman for mindfulness. He's a medical doctor out of the University of Massachusetts Medical School. And he's been teaching mindfulness for the past 35 years. And he describes it as living fully present in the moment and without judgment, just with full acceptance.
Okay.
And that might seem really, really simple, like what are you talking about? But the reality is, it's sort of rare for a person to just embrace the moment. Quite often we're worrying about the future, or we're stressing about the past, or worrying about what happened in the past, or what we're going to do about the future, or our to-do list, and we're multitasking, doing all these things, and instead of just being there with our child or with the person that we're talking to, and in that moment, just giving that moment the full attention, and without judgment, with just acceptance and whatever it is. And that might seem really, really simple, but it really is proven to reduce stress. And one of the best ways to do it, if you're unsure how to start to bring yourself into the moment, is to find your breath.
Okay. We'll pick it up there in just a minute. We have to take one more break. Back with more after we take this commercial break. And again, we're talking with Angela Johnson. The subject at the moment is mindfulness, and we kind of just introduced that subject, and we were talking about, well, what can people do to get themselves in that mindfulness frame of mind? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the most powerful tool that we have right in our back pocket is always with us. We just don't always pay attention to it, and it's our breath.
Okay.
And this is what meditation teaches. I mean, you could take a formal meditation class or a formal mindfulness class, and what they would all probably have in common is they would teach you to periodically be able to find your breath. And that simple act, you don't have to regulate it, you don't have to change it, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just that simple act of finding your breath and following it brings you into this moment.
Okay. You mentioned meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that something that people might want to consider as part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the heart of mindfulness is meditation, which meditation is basically a technique to breathe and bring you mindfully into the present moment.
Okay.
So it would be more of a formal practice of mindfulness.
So you like to bring mindfulness and sustainability together. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Yes, that's what I'm really excited about. When I was teaching at Northern, my students would always say, okay, we get there's a problem, we have an ecological problem and we need to be more sustainable, but what can we do? What can we do right now? How can we feel empowered to make a difference and live sustainably? And the best answer I have is to live mindfully. And so it's just a natural pairing. Mindfulness is the solution. It is the way to live sustainably. Because part of the problem is we've sort of given our connection to food or where our food's coming from. We're not thoughtful of it. We're not mindful of it. The average foodstuff is traveling 1,500 miles before it gets to our plate. So we're not really mindful about it. And so we just eat junk food and then our health suffers and the earth suffers. So for example, using the example of food, to be mindful, let's say, of where your food's coming from, to be thoughtful of where you're getting your eggs from, or are you going to support a local farmer, or where that's coming from and how that affects your body and the earth.
And we do see some trends in that direction locally now too, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And oftentimes you see, although you don't see people putting mindfulness and sustainability together so much, at the same time you'll find that a lot of people that are interested in sustainability and, let's say, local healthy food are also kind of trying out yoga and meditation, and so you do see an overlap of interest. And I think what they both have in common is that they are a more thoughtful approach to living on Earth. It's sort of stepping back from the fast-paced modern industrial society rat race that we've been on, and taking a more thoughtful, deliberate approach to what it means to live well in a place on Earth.
We don't have time to do it justice, but I know in reading in your book you talked about growing up and having the forest available, and that meant a lot to the way you developed, and you're concerned about the fact that kids today, and obviously in urban and metropolitan areas, don't even see a forest.
Yes, yeah. One of the best things that you can do is to develop a relationship and just have that direct experience with nature or with a garden, just with the earth, and certainly our children. If we want to take care of the earth, that stewardship, you plant those seeds of sustainability and mindfulness, ideally in the young. So, and almost all of us have a child in our lives that we could share nature with.
And this really all has to happen kind of one person at a time, doesn't it?
It does. And that might seem unrealistic, but at the same time, I think that's the most realistic way. Any other form of sustainability is somewhat superficial. It's like a Band-Aid solution. If we really want to solve the ecological crisis and the human health crisis, it is an inner transformation, an inner awakening of healing.
Okay. We've kind of only scratched the surface, and that was our intention today.
Yeah.
If people want more information, I know you have a website called greenlivingyoga.com, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Find out more about you and what we're talking about.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in this morning. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll be back with some other thoughts for you after we take this break. Well, I put on this suit to go to work today and made note of the fact that my pants had 3 fasteners I had to deal with to effectively close them and keep them up. That doesn't include the zipper. This wasn't a new revelation since I had done it many times, but I never really stopped to think about it before. The particular suit I'm wearing today has a button on the inside of the garment, then a metal clasp where you slide one part into another, and then a second button on the outside of the pants that completes the closure process. Out of curiosity, I checked out a second suit, and it had the inside button like the other suit and 2 metal closure devices. So at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, why is he telling us this? I know that's true because now I'm even wondering myself why I brought it up. Actually, it's part of that natural curiosity I have. It's like so many other times when I've shared an observation with you, the question that crossed my mind was why? How did they decide I would need a combination of 3 buttons and clasps to keep my pants up? Did a group of businessmen sit around a conference table having an intense discussion about how many were needed to keep the pants securely in place in a men's business suit? Since suits cost more than ordinary pants, was this meant to be some sort of status symbol? Was this put forth as a way to prove that the pants were worth more? Was it designed to differentiate between suit pants and other pants? You can almost hear them saying, with our pants we have triple closure protection. I checked out more of my pants. All of my jeans came with one button, that standard metal button that Levi and other jean makers have used for generations. I looked at some other casual pants and found that most of them had a single button or clasp. On further examination, I found that some had 2 connectors and even found one pair of casual pants with 3. It was a little nicer pair with a fancier brand name. I asked my wife if she recalled having any pants with 3 buttons or fasteners, and she said no. In fact, she was surprised to learn that my pants came that way. She also mentioned that having 3 closures would certainly complicate things for women who were in a hurry to use the ladies' room. Obviously, by now I've spent too much time examining the buttons on my pants. There are so many weighty issues in this world, and here I am devoting all this thought to how many connectors I need to keep my pants closed. Well, I can be sure of one thing. When I get dressed up in a business suit, my pants will be secure. And that means a lot to me. I'll be back in a minute. Well, before we go, I do want to take time to acknowledge the fact that another St. Patrick's Day has come and gone. When your name is Ryan, you can't ignore that important holiday. They're probably hard to see, but my tie does have little green shamrocks on it. And speaking of dates on the calendar, the first day of spring arrives this week. It will officially be here tomorrow morning at 6:28 a.m. Time to dig out the shorts and summer shirts. Don't forget you can check us out on the internet. Go to uppermichigansource.com, where you'll always find the latest news 24 hours a day, and the latest edition of this show starting at about noon on Monday. Thanks to Angela Johnson for joining us this morning to help us explore some interesting concepts called sustainability and mindfulness. Both offer some thoughts on how we live our lives. That's all the time we have for today. Look forward to seeing you again next Sunday morning.